when presented with a dirty and unstructured dataset like this? How do you clean and transform it into a neat and structured dataset like this? Hello, my data friends, it's Coco here again, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I'm going to be walking you through a very simple data cleaning process. If you're a data enthusiast and you'll be looking for a data cleaning exercise to try out, make sure you stay till the end of this video. And if you're ready, let's dive right into it.
So I'm going to be using Microsoft Excel for this tutorial. Microsoft Excel is a powerful tool. It is beyond writing functions. So here we have the dirty data set. So we can see that it is unstructured. Okay, so the first column shows the order ID of different customers. Also, we can see that for each order ID, there is a customer segment here. There's a customer segment and there's also a ship mode. Now, this is where the problem is. Let's take a look at the clean data set. All right, so now you can see the clean data set. It has just four columns. We have the customer segment, the ship mode, the order ID, and then the sales value. Let's go back to the dirty data set. The segment and the ship mode were entered on different columns. So that is why you see that for each customer segment, there are ship modes attached to each customer segment. So right here, we have the consumer segment, and it is for the first class ship mode. This next column is also the consumer segment, but for the same day ship mode. So you can see that we have four different types of ship modes: first class, same day, second class, and standard class. This particular data set, the figures were entered in a way that after each customer segment, there is also the segment total. So that is why we have the consumer total here. All right. And then the next segment is the corporate segment, and it also has four ship modes. It also has corporate total, that is the segment total. And lastly is the home office customer segment. Also has four ship modes: first class, same day, second class, and standard class. And also has its own segment total. All right, so what we are going to do is clean and transform this data so that the customer segments and ship mode are in two separate columns, like what we have in this clean data set. So you can see that the customer segment and the ship mode are in two separate columns. Before doing that, let's take a look at both data sets carefully. So first of all, let me go back to the dirty data set. This is how it looks like. So you can see that it is not easily readable. It is not so easy to understand. It is very complex. Now let's take a look at the clean data set. You can see that it is more easy to read. It's more easy to understand. Now let me ask you a question. Which do you think is more easier to understand? I know I've said the answer, all right, but to you, which data set do you think is more easier to understand? So this is the dirty data set, and this is the clean data set. I know you already know the answer. Yes. So this clean data set is more easier to understand because for each order ID that we have here, we have the segment to which the customer belongs to, and then the ship mode, and then the sales value. So you see, it's straight to the point. But here in the dirty data set, it is quite complex, okay? Because I have to like strain my eyes before I can fully understand or grasp what this whole table is saying. To clean this dirty data set, I'm going to use the Power Query editor in Microsoft Excel. And how do we get there? All you need to do is go to the Data tab. Under the Get and Transform Data, you would see from table slash range. So now let me read what it says. From table slash range, it creates a new query linked to the selected Excel table or named range. So for now, I have not selected any table. I have not named these particular data sets. So if the selected data isn't part of a table or named range, it will be converted into a table. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to click on from table slash range. Remember what the from table slash range it does. So if my data set wasn't a table before, or if I hadn't given it a named range before, it is going to automatically do that for you. And that is what it has done right now. So I'm going to click on this checkbox here to say that my table has headers, and then click OK. For, so for those of you who are new to the Power Query editor in Microsoft Excel, this is how it looks like. It makes data cleaning and data transformation more easier. The first thing that I am going to do is rename these column headers. For each customer segment, I'm going to attach their different ship mode types to the headers. For this consumer segment, I'm going to include an hyphen. Later in this video, you're going to understand why there is need to include an hyphen or a delimiter. So you can either use a comma, an hyphen, or anything, or any delimiter of your choice. So for this tutorial, I'm using an hyphen. So I'm going to include an hyphen and type in first class. All right, so let me just copy this to save time. Then on the next column, we're still on the consumer segment. Okay, so I'm going to change the first class to same day because that is what we have below. I'll do the same for the consumer segment second class. And lastly, for the consumer segment is the standard class. So using this same format, I'm going to change or rename the column headers of the last two segments. So after renaming the column headers, the next thing I'm going to do is remove the segment totals. So we have the consumer segment. I'm just going to select the totals and remove them. We also have the corporate total, and lastly, the home office total. All right. So you can either press the delete key on your keyboard to delete the columns, or you can just right click on the column header and click on remove columns. So this will remove the selected columns only. The next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to take away or remove this first row. So there's no need to keep the first row since we already have the ship mode types in the column headers. And to remove this first row, there's a table icon. There's a small table icon by the left here. So click on that table icon. You go down to where you see remove top rows and click on it. It's going to ask you to specify the number of rows you want to remove from the top. So I just want to remove one row, and I'm going to impute one and click OK. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is unpivot these other columns while leaving the first column. Now you're going to see how it will look like. So to do that, make sure you select the first column. All right, so I'm going to select the first column and then go to transform tab. So on the transform tab, under any column section, you are going to see on pivot column. So don't just click on pivot columns. I'm going to click on the drop down icon and click on pivot other columns. And this is how it looks like. So you can see that it's starting to look like what we have in the clean data set, but we are not done yet. We still need to rename the column headers and get our customer segments and ship mode types in separate columns. The first thing I'm going to do is rename the column header of the first column to order ID. And then I'm also going to rename the last column's header to sales. And then I'm going to change the data type. So to change the data type in the Power Query editor, you can change the data type in two ways. So you can either click on the data type itself on the column like this, and then change it to the data type that you want to change it to, or you can go back to the Home tab under the Transform section. You click on the data type dropdown and change it to the data type that you love to change it to. So for this sales column, I am going to change it to decimal number. All right, so what I'm going to do next is split this attribute column into two so that we have the customer segment on one side and the ship mode on another column. To do that, I'm going to right click on the attribute column. I'll go down to split column and I'll click on by delimiter. So that says I am splitting this column by delimiter. Right now, it has automatically selected the delimiter for me, but usually you would see a comma. You can choose to give it any delimiter. You can either give it a comma, a slash, a dollar sign, or anything at all. So, but for this tutorial, I used hyphen. So I'm going to click on this drop down and select custom. All right. So just in case this doesn't come out for you, you can specify the delimiter manually. So I have imputed the hyphen and now I'm going to click OK. Now we have two columns, the customer segment and the ship mode. But you won't know, right, until you rename the column header. So I'm going to rename the column header of attribute 1. I'll change it to segments. And then I'll change attribute 2 to ship mode. The next thing I'm going to do to make sure that this saves is to close and load. So on the home tab, the first thing you're going to see is close and load. So just click on the drop down and I'm going to select close and load. Now this is what it looks like. So let me just change the table design to something more better. Now compare this to what we had before. So you can see the difference. The clean dataset is more easier to read, it's more easier to understand, it's straight to the point that for each other ID, there is the customer segment, there is also a ship mode, and then the sales value, unlike what we have in the dirty dataset. And there you have it, data enthusiasts. That is how you can use Power Query Editor in Microsoft Excel to clean and transform your data sets. So if you enjoyed this video, if you found it insightful, please make sure that you leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, bye.